On today's child seat review segment, we are taking a look at the all-new 2016 Kia Sorento. As usual, this is a Graco Classic Ride 50 child seat. It's a convertible seat, and it's suitable for children between 5 and 50 pounds. The Sorento is a 2 or a 3-row crossover, and it's priced from $24,900 on up to the $45,000 model we're testing here. And as a result, this does have a very broad range of competitors. The Ford portfolio is probably the easiest to use as an example. At the low end of things, this competes with the likes of the Ford Escape based on price, but it is going to be a little bit bigger than an Escape. It also competes with the Ford Edge in mid-level trims. It's right around the same size as the Edge. And you can view top-end trims like this one with the optional third row as the value alternative and slightly more compact alternative to the Ford Explorer. Because the Sorento comes in so many different varieties, it's important to keep in mind the relative size. This is smaller than something like an Explorer, a Highlander, or a Pilot, although the interior room is relatively similar to that Toyota Highlander. That means that we get less combined legroom, and that would be front row, middle row, and third row. Legroom figures are especially important when it comes to inserting rear-facing child seats in the middle row. So the first step, of course, is to adjust this front seat into a comfortable but upright position, and I want to make sure that the seat is as far forward as is comfortable and as is safe. With the front seat in that position, I can just barely fit this rear-facing child seat right there behind myself at 6 feet tall. Now, because of the way the dash is shaped, I wasn't able to fit a rear-facing child seat comfortably behind the driver, although it was possible if I moved the seat upwards a little bit more than I would normally like. You should always keep in mind that you want at least an inch or two of room between the child seat and the front seat, because the front seat can move a decent amount rearward in the event of a crash. The extra size that we get in the Sorento helps us a bit in the rearward-facing child seat test, because we get more room back here in the middle row than you'll find in the second row of something like a RAV4 or a Ford Escape. However, those larger 3-row crossovers will obviously perform better than this. Something like a Nissan Pathfinder or a Chevy Traverse, they're a decent amount larger than the Sorento, and a lot of that extra length goes right here to the second row. Although you can slide the second row forward with a child seat attached, there's just not enough room behind it in order to get into the third row. These seats do not articulate like you find in the Nissan Pathfinder, which allows you to keep a child seat strapped into place with the latch anchors and have access to that third row. Because the Sorento is not quite as wide as something like a Pathfinder or a Honda Pilot, you can't put a child seat right here in the middle seat and still expect this 40% side to fold forward. You would have to put the single child seat either right here on the 40% side so you can fold the 60% side, or you have to put it right over there on that 60% side. When it comes to anchors, we do have latch anchors for the outboard sitting positions, and they are right here under this thickly padded seat. Very easy to access, and we don't have any hard points to bother adults or other passengers. All 3 second row seating positions do have a top tether anchor, and they are positioned in a good spot on the seat back. Makes it easy to use those larger buckles that some child seats have. Back here in the third row, you won't find latch anchors or top tether anchors for these 2 seats in the back. And it was a little bit too compact to put rearward facing child seats. However, I have to say there's actually a reasonable amount of room in this third row for such a compact 3-row crossover, and these seats are surprisingly comfortable. The big limiting factor back here, of course, is the lack of those top tether anchors and a lack of headroom for adults. The safest place for your children would be in the second row. Even though the Sorento is relatively compact for a 3-row crossover, you actually don't find that much more room even in something large like a Nissan Pathfinder. Now, I did have troubles putting 24 and 26-inch roller bags right here behind the third row. I'll fold this up so you can see how little room there is left right there behind the third row seats. However, the surprising thing is you really only find a few more inches in the Pathfinder, even though it's about a foot longer. The 2016 Sorento is more cargo-friendly than your average 5-passenger compact crossover, so this is definitely a step up from something like a RAV4 or a CR-V. That's also the same market that the Ford Edge plays in, because it does 5 people and 5 people's worth of cargo very easily in the back. However, with this vehicle, you have the choice of either that 5-passenger version or the 7-passenger version. I think I'd take the 7-passenger version because it is just that little bit more practical. Obviously, that third row is relatively compact, so it is best saved for naughty children or your mother-in-law, but I'd rather have one than not. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. Be sure and check out the full and complete review on this 2016 Kia Sorento coming up in the next day or so. I'll see you next week.